Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite zombie franchises of all time, the 28 franchise. We began with 28 Days Later in 2002, followed by 28 Weeks Later in 2007. Now, 28 Years Later is an interesting film with some ups and downs, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But first, let's go over the story. Be warned, there are spoilers. And also, as usual, this is a gory movie, so if you're faint of heart or get queasy very easily, you might want to skip this one, or at least skip certain parts. We open the movie with some children watching Teletubbies on a very fuzzy screen. They're out in the Scottish Highlands. There's definitely a lot of tension here, as some children are watching the show, and their mother or someone's mother bursts into the room, telling them not to go anywhere and to stay quiet. However, curiosity overtakes one boy named Jimmy, and he goes to the door just in time to hear some horrid banging and some terrible violence happening on the other side. He barely escapes with his life. He runs to a church on a hill and sees his father praying. His father has interpreted this rage virus as Judgment Day, and he is more in ecstasy than horror as the infected are all around them. He gives Jimmy his gold necklace, and then Jimmy hides as his father is torn to shreds by the zombies that attack. Fast forward 28 years later, again in Scotland. The rage virus has all been quarantined to certain islands, while the rest of continental Europe appears to have eradicated it. Those in the quarantine zone have to survive by whatever means they can. And there is a community on Hope Island that has grown and been able to actually survive and thrive in this horrid climate. Spike and his father, Jamie, his wife, Isla, who has a debilitating illness of some kind, are on this island, when one day, Jamie is going to take Spike on a sort of hunting ritual that the rest of the island is taking part in and cheering him on for. If Jamie goes out with Spike and brings Spike back with some kills, now Spike is part of the hunting community and more of a man. While they're in the forest, they find an infected body that's tied to a tree with the word Jimmy etched into its skin. Jamie is teaching Spike how to hunt by starting with what they call slow lows, which are basically zombies that are so decrepit and decaying that all they can do is crawl around and eat worms or bugs, and maybe occasionally attack someone's ankles. Jamie teaches Spike how to draw the bow and to get ready with a great shot. Spike takes aim and fires. Other things they find when they take out the slow lows are a deer head and spine thrown up into a tree. Jamie talks about an alpha, meaning something much stronger and faster than the other rage zombies. As they're walking through a clearing, they see on a hill some infected, led by that same alpha that had killed the deer. They're attacked by this group and flee into a decrepit house, where they take out a bunch of the zombies, but have to stay overnight because the alpha is watching. While they take turns watching, Spike sees some boats out on the water in one direction, and then he sees a large fire in another direction. However, while they're sleeping, due to the weather, the decrepit house can stand it no longer, and the house collapses on them as they run out. Jamie and Spike make a break for the causeway that can only be used in low tide. It's in low tide at this point, so they have to run in shin-deep water. However, the alpha is watching them on the hill and runs after them. They're running on the causeway, scrambling, falling, trying to escape this alpha, when the Hope Island guards spot them.
This is it, Spike! Free! No! Shit! Ah!
Now that Jamie and Spike are safe, there is a huge party thrown for them. Jamie takes to drinking a bit too much and telling tall tales about Spike's adventure, things that Spike is not very comfortable with because he is over-exaggerating Spike's abilities. During this time, Spike also catches Jamie having an affair with the school teacher. At this point, the whole father-son dynamic has been completely turned on its head, and Spike doesn't really seem to trust or like his father at the moment. He goes home and talks to a family friend, Sam, who is watching Isla, Spike's mother. Spike mentions the fire in the forest, to which Sam tells him that this is Kelson's fire, a general practitioner who was in exile and had pretty much gone insane. He doesn't really want to say a lot more, and he would rather the family talk to him about it. The next day, Spike goes to confront his father about Dr. Kelson and why Jamie hasn't brought his mother to see him. Jamie shares a story of when they were in the forest many years ago, and they saw that fire. And when they were drawn to it, they saw a man lining up hundreds of corpses and burning them one by one. But when the doctor saw them, he just waved as though he is a neighbor doing some regular chores. After that moment, they vowed they would never go see this man again because he must be insane. Now Spike completely despises his father with all of the things that he's seen, and he hatches a plan to get his mother off of Hope Island and to this Dr. Kelson, because Dr. Kelson might be their only hope to cure his mother of whatever she has. Spike goes through an elaborate plan to set a fire to draw the guards, and thereby taking his mother across the causeway to the mainland. Isla at this time is very confused, and she doesn't often know who she's talking to. Throughout the movie, in fact, she calls Spike her dad, or she seems to be calling people different things, and her head overall seems to be a mushy mass that can't really get itself straight. But more on that later. So once Spike and Isla are on the mainland, they are almost immediately attacked by infected. There's a cutaway for a couple of minutes showing some kind of army troop that is on the run from these infected in another part of the island. Most of them are killed immediately, with only a few remaining. An Alpha attacks them and kills the last 2 out of 3 before the last one escapes. This last one, named Erik, eventually saves Spike and Isla from the group of infected that they're being chased by. After saving Isla and Spike, Erik seems to have some buyer's remorse about what he's just had to do because Isla is very confused and Spike is a 12-year-old boy, and there really isn't any other way for them to survive at this point. Throughout this exchange between Erik, Isla, and Spike, you also learn that the people on Hope Island and in quarantine don't really know what modern technology is. For example, the most modern cell phone is very much lost on Spike, and he doesn't understand what it is. He also doesn't really seem to understand what Botox or high levels of makeup are, as Erik shows his fiancé or ex-fiancé, and Spike makes some comments about it. Very soon after, they find a rundown train, and inside the train, someone is screaming. A couple of minutes before in the movie, you have seen a pack of infected in water in a shallow creek, splashing around and acting strangely, all except for one who is very pregnant. And this is, if you'll remember, 28 years into the future after the outbreak has originally occurred. So this is not a pregnant woman who was infected with the original outbreak. This is a new pregnancy, it seems. When the three enter the train, they hear the woman screaming. The woman is in labor, and Isla thinks it's a good idea to hold the raged zombie woman's hands while she gave birth. Isla catches the baby and swaddles it. The rage takes over once again, and Erik puts her down for good. In the scuffle of deciding whether or not to kill the baby, Erik backs up because he thinks that it's going to attack them at any moment. However, he didn't check his 6. Now the Alpha has attacked. They're running through the train car, slamming doors behind them. Spike is actually hitting him with a couple of arrows, but not really hitting him in the head or the chest, killing him. As they run out into a field and they are desperately trying to get away from this Alpha, a blow dart suddenly shoots and hits the Alpha, momentarily stunning him. Dr. Kelson walks up and explains that this is a sort of sedative to keep Samson, the name he's given to the Alpha, sedated for a short time. He takes Erik's head and spine with him for some unknown reason, and they walk back to where Dr. Kelson lives. There is a large monument, which he calls Memento Mori, where there are trees that have been shaved down with thousands of bones wrapped around them, and a giant skull pile that reached 20 to 25 feet in the air. These are all of the people who have been burned and cleaned to show a monument to death. Dr. Kelson, as you see though, is not really some kind of insane witch doctor or crazy surgeon. He's actually very lucid, and he makes some references to Latin and to the Bible with Samson. He talks a lot about Memento Mori, which is Latin as well, And he seems, for all intents and purposes, not insane at all. Now that Spike has taken Isla to the doctor, here is some final hope to figure out what is wrong with her. There must be some kind of sickness or illness, especially related to the rage virus, that is going to eventually kill her or do something, right? Dr. Kelson observes her and examines her. He doesn't have any tools or any equipment, so he has to use his own eyes and feel around and be able to understand what's happening. But eventually, he has to give her the really bad news. She has stage 4 terminal cancer. The cancer has metastasized to her brain or to her body, one or the other, he can't be sure. But the point is that she is going to die soon. How soon, you might ask? Pretty much immediately. Spike is now sedated by the doctor. Isla goes off into the darkness to also be sedated by the doctor. And soon after, Dr. Kelson returned with Isla's skull. He gives it to Spike, who is now going to climb the top of the skull mountain with his own mother's skull, where he puts it on top of the pile, facing the sun. Samson, the Alpha, runs through the memento mori and attacks Spike and Dr. Kelson. After a short struggle, Spike is able to sedate Samson once again with one of Dr. Kelson's blow darts, saving the doctor. The doctor thanks him and tells him to go back home with the newborn that he has. Spike, however, is not ready to go back to Hope Island. He leaves the baby on the front gate with a note to his father, Jamie, talking about what has happened. He's named the baby Isla after his own mother, but he's decided to go back to the mainland. Spike promises to return when he is ready. Jamie does not want this and wants to go after his son, but the high tide blocks the causeway, keeping him where he is. Finally, 28 days later, meaning 28 days after he drops Isla off at the gate, Spike is walking through the mainland when he is approached by a group of infected. He takes one out, but has to run and escape. But by the time he gets around the road that's winding and twisting through the mountains, he finds that there was a collapse and he is trapped. Someone calls to him from above, asking if he would like their assistance. A couple of people in tracksuits appear, holding poles and spikes and spears, and they wait for their leader's command. And then he says to go, and this happens.
Go 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's that?
At the very end, the leader introduces himself as Jimmy Crystal, and you see that same gold necklace that had been shown at the very beginning of the movie. This is the boy Jimmy, who's been surviving for 28 years on the island with this group of merry men and women. And that's where it ends. Now, as you might have guessed, I'm not very happy with this movie in a lot of ways. Let me start with the good. The zombies have taken on a new set of evolutions, and that reminds me a lot of the Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead type of movies, especially the part with the pregnant woman and the zombie baby. But in this case, instead of Dawn of the Dead having a zombie baby, this is where one baby is completely innocent and pure and clean. Dr. Kelson makes some reference to the magic properties of the placenta. The zombies were very cool too, and there was a lot of really interesting lore that was there. I also thought that the father-son dynamic was a tried and true, very common but yet very well done type of trope, where the father is going to teach the son how to survive and teach him all he knows. I also found that Hope Island had a very unique feature that I hadn't seen in other apocalyptic and zombie movies, which was that causeway and the tide that could be a wonderful protection, but also had a double-edged sword effect where if you're caught on the mainland in the wrong time, you're going to have to wait 4 or 6 hours to come back onto the Hope Island proper. The island itself was very unique too, in that not only are these people surviving, but they're thriving, and they've got a whole community with different jobs. The acting was very good too. For the most part, I felt that the acting was very spot on for what was being asked of the actors, especially Ralph Fiennes, who, if you don't know who that is, that's Voldemort. And he is able to do a ton of parts, and he does everything excellently. Okay, now for the not so good. Number 1, the ending was awful. There were so many different ways that this could have gone. They could have shown the baby being taken care of by, let's say, a wet nurse, because Dr. Kelson makes reference to her needing milk. So the only obvious solution to that would be getting milk from somewhere. So something that could have been a little teaser for the following movie would have been, say, a wet nurse and the baby maybe opening its eyes and showing that it had red eyes or had something different about it to show that maybe it's not an infected zombie or rage zombie, but that maybe it carried the gene. And that would have been a really cool way to end it. It would have been a cool way to end it in any number of ways, but they end it like that. They ended with this bunch of people in tracksuits doing acrobatic flips like they're in the circus, and I think I even heard some ninja sounds in there too that really changed the tone and the pace of the movie right at the very end. Also, and maybe you completely disagree with me here, let me know in the comments below. Jimmy Crystal, who cares that he survived 28 years? Does he have some special power? Does he have some special ability? Is he able to fight the infected in a way that's going to change the island itself? He's been surviving for 28 years there, and that's a feat in and of itself. He looks like he's very much having fun with it, and he looks like he's very much a little twisted, other than the fact that this connected to the very beginning of the movie. There's really no point to the supposed twist. It felt like I was missing something, like I had walked out of the theater and come back and there was this big reveal, and then I just caught the very end. Another glaring problem with this movie, and this is probably the biggest issue that I had, is the fact that there are so many storylines, but they all just pop up. It felt as though there were 5 or 6 writers that were competing for screen time and would just flip the page over to the next empty space and start writing their own brand new story. And then at the end, the director was given this and said, okay, let's just put all this together. Now, I know Danny Boyle, who directed 28 Days Later, is a great director. He directed it very well. I love that movie. But this felt like there were too many cooks in the kitchen. You start off with the very beginning, the intro, where Jimmy is seen and he escapes and you don't know what happens to him. Okay, great. And then the next part is showing Jamie and Spike going out to the mainland. That's great. It completely shifts when they go back to Hope Island, and suddenly Jamie is a sort of villain where he was the hero before. And Isla has something wrong with her that Spike now doesn't believe his father, he doesn't trust him anymore. And then the next day, they're on the mainland. Then the military just shows up in a quick cut, and all of a sudden there are 7 military guys running. You don't see them crash their boat. You don't even hear anything about how these patrol boats are really around. Like, they're mentioned, but they're not focused on in a way where it would have made sense. It would have made much more sense for the director and the writers to hone in on a patrol boat, show these guys hanging out, and then maybe crashing or being attacked by these infected or having engine failure. Anything would have made sense. Instead, and maybe there's a deleted scene that I'm just not seeing, let's break down the whole point of Spike taking Isla to Dr. Kelson in the first place. Now, I am not opposed in any movie or show to people just dying from natural causes, because that's a fact of life. Just because you're in a post-apocalyptic wasteland or a dystopian city does not mean that you only die by these grand circumstances. People die by cancer, people get hit by a car, people have a tree fall on them. Very common things still should occur in a story like this. Okay, having said that, Spike takes on this long, dangerous journey where multiple people are dying, and in the process, a baby is born from an infected woman, only to find that the reason that she's got her head all foggy and having these issues is because she has cancer. The way it was set up earlier before Spike takes Isla from Jamie is that Jamie knew something that he didn't want Spike to know. And that would have been an intriguing storyline. And then, to go on that scene, she immediately is killed. She wasn't like on her deathbed. It's not like time passes and some days go by and you see her kind of like getting weaker and weaker or something like that. She's still standing, she's still alive and speaking, but it's just like the writers felt like they just had to get rid of her for screen time. Just get rid of her now because we got to move on. And that was really a detriment to the character and the storyline. I could have at least felt something more to see Spike maybe laying with her for a couple of days or taking care of her and watching her suffer in a way where you would want the best thing for your family member. And maybe Spike asks Dr. Kelson to help her. It's literally diagnosis to death is like a 45-second interval. It was just very jarring. Also, I have to put one final thing before I give my rating. Some of the zombie kills were so unnecessarily stylistic that it kind of took me out of the movie. Here are a couple of examples.
Hit it!
I didn't really need to see that. Not that I'm against gore, it's not about that at all. The problem for me is why? Why did you have to go all the way around behind his head? So overall, I was very disappointed, I have to say, and I'm not the only one. So if you look on the IMDB ratings here, most of the ratings fall between 5 to 8 stars. So if you average that out, they're getting about a 6.5 out of 10, which is about, if I were giving this a number grade, that's about where I would put it. For me, I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm going to give this movie an Isla out of 10. It's confused, it's all over the place, it doesn't really know what it wants to be sometimes. But then it's got periods of lucidity, it's got periods of action and fun, and a driven storyline, only to be hung up again by its own foggy confusion. I'm not recommending this movie highly in relation to the first two. In the first two, you had a lot more cohesion, you had a lot more driven storyline, and the people that they pick up along the way really matter for the storyline. I still enjoyed seeing zombies get killed and seeing the gore fest that did happen, but I would have liked and asked a little bit more out of this movie. My hope is that in this part 2 that they're probably going to make, that there's going to be more of a connection between Jimmy Crystal and either Hope Island or Jimmy Crystal and finding a cure, or something has to have some loose ends tied up. But maybe I'll give it a shot depending on what I see. Who knows? If you enjoyed that one, I also talked about 28 Days Later and Weeks Later on my channel. I've covered The Thing. I've also covered I Am Legend. So if you're interested in some Halloween scares and spookiness, check those videos out as well. Until then, I'll see you guys later.